Good afternoon, everybody. I had to check the time. I am here with Tammy Price, and I am excited to chat with her. She is actually an author in the 365 Empowering Stories, so I'm thrilled to have you. Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you, Randy. Glad to be here.
and thanks for being on with us today. So you are a certified medical intuitive and an inner adventure facilitator. So both of those sound really exciting, and I'd love to hear what do each of those mean.
Okay.
And anybody out there watching us, just say a hello so we know you're watching. And to start off, Tammy, tell us what is a medical intuitive?
Okay. So a medical intuitive is someone who can look through the body. Big words. Somebody just said big words. Somebody who can look through the body, uncover areas of energetic congestion. So areas of the body that might be holding on to things like trauma or things that have happened to us in the past. So I'm able to uncover those areas. And then once we do that, I bring action towards or recommendations towards healing those. And so, that's where the inner adventure facilitator comes in, because it's often those traumas that we hold in our bodies that are holding us back from living our truest selves, our most authentic beings.
Okay, wow. And hello, Gordon. Gordon's watching with us. And there's a bunch of other people on. Say hello so we can say hello back to you. I saw there was Catherine Ann Clark there. And there's some others watching, but they're not saying hello, so we don't know who they are. Or give us a like or love or something. And definitely ask some questions. So let's get into what you do exactly and how you help people.
Okay. So as a medical intuitive, what I do is an assessment on an individual. It's not an ongoing procedure. It's a one visit, basically. Okay. Most of the time what I do is I work intuitively. So all I need is a person's name and their birth date in order to be able to tap into their energy field and uncover the areas of energetic congestion. And so what I do is I do a written report, which is actually about 12 pages long. It deals with the generalized time frame, so your entire lifetime. And it comes back and it's comprehensive. It's areas of energetic congestion, where you have energy blocks, what you can do to heal those yourselves. And often what usually happens is as soon as we bring attention to those areas, the healing already begins. But there are actions that one can take. And I use the example often of a man who had thyroid cancer. And, throughout his whole life, he was taught to not use his voice. And so one of the recommendations that we did was to have him join a men's choir. Yeah. Nice. So using that voice in a positive, profound, impactful way.
Wow. And how's he doing now?
I don't follow up with my clients, I'll be quite honest, because the work, once we do the assessment and hand it over, the work is theirs for theirs to do. Whether he even joined a choir, that's up to him.
Okay. So I'm going to play the skeptic here.
Yep.
So you don't actually need to speak with them?
I do speak with them after the assessment is completed.
But not before?
But not before.
So how does it work then? So just for people out there to understand, if you don't need to speak with them and talk to them and do whatever with them, you just need a couple pieces of information. How does it work? Like I'm playing the devil's advocate here. So just so that they understand how you would come up with a 12-page report when you don't have the need to speak to them.
Everything is energy. It's all energy. I'm tapping into their energetic field. And so oftentimes what I don't even need their name and their birth date. If somebody comes to me and says, I need an assessment done on myself, I can immediately tap into their energy. Everything is energy. The table in front of you is energy. The wall is energy. So it's just tapping into that energetic field. That's all. And it's so funny because often when I'm speaking with people, to groups of people, what I'll do is I'll say, here's how it works. And I'll give them a name and an age of someone. who's given me permission to use them. And then I'll say to them, write down everything and anything that comes to you about that person. And people are amazed at how much they're able to pick up. And they're not trained to do this, right? So we all have the ability to tap into somebody else's energy field if we choose to do that.
Well, it's amazing, and it definitely is an art and a talent. And the reason that I wanted you to explain it is because there's a lot of people that understand, but there's a lot of people that don't necessarily understand, right? And so can you explain to us, thank you for explaining that. What do these words mean? Inner adventure facilitator.
Okay, so life to me is an inner adventure. That's what I have dedicated my life to doing for myself is understanding the triggers in my life and how I respond to them. And so most of us go through life, and I did this for over 40 years, living life.
You're not that old.
Yeah. Living life and responding to them. So for example, saying somebody does something to us. My belief is that nobody does anything to us. I don't believe in forgiveness in that way, and because forgiveness implies that somebody has done something to us. But how we react to things that happen in our lives, the triggers, those are inner adventures. They're opportunities for understanding. And to me, that's the most exciting part of life. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's so funny because last year I read Love Warrior, written by Glennon Doyle Melton. I don't know if you've read that book. And Glennon, adventure facilitator. Adventure starts from the inside outward. It's so funny because often what we do is we go outside of ourselves looking for adventure. We take trips, we do fun things, and we think that makes us happy. And it does for the very short-term period of time. But the inner adventure from the inside has us being happy from the inside and then going out in our lives instead of having to need to do something to feel better about ourselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Somebody made a comment here. Adventure facilitator, is this in the tourist sector?
Yeah, well, it is a journey on the inside. There's no question. I love that question. I love that question because it makes complete sense. Because so many of us have not toured the inside yet.
Absolutely. And some of us are terrified to do that.
And you know what? The best part is when it's uncomfortable, it should be where we should be at. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
That's, uncomfortableness. A friend of mine wrote a book. It was called The 5-Minute Journal. Mm-hmm. And one of the quotes in the book was, resistance is the opposite of growth. Right?
Yeah. So. Yeah. Well, totally. When you're out of your comfort zone, you're growing, right?
Yes, totally.
Like it or don't like it. But thank you for the comment. I don't know how to pronounce your name, so I don't want to offend you and mispronounce it. But thank you for writing the comment. So tell us, because you are now part of the 365 Empowering Stories, and I don't want you to give away your story, but tell us what drove you to want to share.
Okay. So I was a woman in business. I worked in the financial advisory industry for over 20 years.
Wow.
Wasn't what I was trained to do. My actual education in my early years was in journalism. And I worked as a journalist for a couple of years before I decided I wasn't making enough money to put food on the table for my family. Right. So I tell people I sold my soul. Went over to the other side, worked in the financial. I wasn't happy. I knew that every day when I went into the office. I was successful. I did well. It just wasn't for me. And so I retired in 2014.
Wow,
and,
congrats.
In July of 2014 and November of 2014, my partner and I went to Mexico looking for a vacation rental property, and we were touring around condos. And we went into this one condo, and at this point I wasn't sure what I was going to be doing following retiring. And we went into this one condo, and I met this woman, and I couldn't look at her condo because I just knew there was something not right.
Wow.
As we were driving away, the real estate agent asked me, what did you think of this condo? And I said, honestly, I couldn't look because I just know that there's something not right with this woman. Mm-hmm. And he turned around and said, well, are you a medical intuitive? And I went, what?
Really?
Yeah. And so the next morning I grabbed my laptop, I searched medical intuitive, found a college that
now I am.
Found a college. The interesting thing is the day I started school, I was trained in New York City. It's a year-long program. The day I started school was the day I had a biopsy for breast cancer. So I had a biopsy in the morning and then flew out that afternoon and started school that weekend in New York City. So the interesting part is I was diagnosed with breast cancer. Just a few days after that, my mom was diagnosed with lung cancer, terminal lung cancer. Oh, and my dad with bladder cancer just a few months after that. So it was like, wow, here I was, someone who didn't have a lot of medical experience other than speaking to my clients every day on the phone at the bank and them talking to me about their medical issues. I had really no training in medical. And then I'm diagnosed, my mom's diagnosed and my dad's diagnosed. So I got, pretty quick lesson in dealing with hospitals and doctors, and which I have a tremendous amount of respect for, even as a medical intuitive, because I believe it's an integrated process. Mm-hmm. Medical intuitives understand the emotional body, but they work to understand what's the cause of the physical symptoms, why the physical symptom is manifesting, where doctors will look to heal that physical symptom in the first place. So, So that's my story. I went through surgery and radiation. I chose not to do chemo.
Okay.
I'm cancer-free, knock on wood.
That's awesome. Congratulations. And what about your parents?
So my mom passed away last year.
Sorry to hear that.
Thank you. She, and I'm still grieving. I feel sad every day. Sure. It's a process. My mom was given 8 months to live when she was diagnosed. So she was diagnosed in February of 2015 and was given 8 months to live and lived much longer than that. So, I'd like to believe part of it was understanding what was going on within her and us being able to have those conversations. And they were conversations like I had never been able to have with my mom before.
Right.
And so, she passed away in June of last year. My dad is fully recovered from his journey with cancer. So
that's awesome.
Thank you.
Good to hear that. Wow. Yeah, you got me all emotional now. Wow. Well, good news is the best thing to hear when you hear terrible stories like that, and that you're clean is awesome. So,
Thank you.
Keep up all the good vibes and don't let any negative ones in.
You know what, Randy? I am happier and healthier today than I've ever been. Mm-hmm. Even though I've had a bout with cancer, I feel happier and healthier than I've ever been. And part of it is when you're living your passion, that's part of it. But when you're understanding what stopped you from living your passion in the first place, that's when you begin to feel free. Now, that book I mentioned, Glendora Melton's Love Warrior, here was a woman who was hiding behind her shame for years and years and years. Shame from drug abuse or bulimic and alcoholism and all kinds of stuff. And it took for her to do that inner work in order to be able to step out in front of that shame and blame and guilt that she was feeling in order to be able to live her most authentic self. Right. And she's as successful as she is today because she is living her authentic self. So many of us put on masks every single day when we go out into the world. If you line up 10 of your friends, the way you show up with each of those friends is different. Mm-hmm. When in reality, we should be able to be the same with everyone, mm-hmm. whether we're at a party, whether we're out for dinner with friends, whether with our kids, whether with our husband. Yep. When we're living authentically, we don't wear those masks.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, yeah, it's amazing how many people shift personalities depending on who they're with and where they are, and or even when you're raised by your parents and there's an expectation to behave a certain way in certain situations. And I just never fell for any of that. Nancy Mayer's on. Thanks,
Hi,
Nancy.
Nancy. Thank you.
Says you both rock, powerful women. Well, you're included in there too, honey. Thank you. Yeah, but to me, I could never understand, why would you act different, in certain situations. But you look at people and they do, right? Not everybody, but
They do, because we hold those things in our body. We hold those, I call them traumas, and they might not be considered traumas in everyone's eyes, but
right.
Somebody told us we're overweight. And so when we eat food that we think is fattening, we attach that energy to them and we put it in our bodies. It's just those little things that have come inside of our heads, and mostly how it's been how we interpreted it, right? So if somebody calls us fat, we interpret it as we're not worthy, we're ugly, we're this, we're that.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we start to live out our life based on that story, right? It's how we interpret what happened, when in reality all it is what happened.
Right.
I was diagnosed with cancer. End of story.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that I'm not worthy. It's not that I didn't eat enough green food. It's not that I didn't exercise enough. All those things are important, but that's not why I got cancer.
Right. Right.
And we make these stories and then we live by them. When in reality, all it is what happened.
We're basically giving our power up.
Totally.
Right? Giving it up to something else. Well, thank you so much, Tammy. I'm excited to have you in the 365 Empowering Stories book and to be chatting with you here on Facebook Live and learning so much more about you. It's awesome.
I love what you're doing, Randy. You're reaching so many, women, men, people, and helping change their lives. And I'm honored to be a part of this. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And that was very sweet of you. But, we just try helping people the best that we can. And the people it resonates with, awesome. And if it doesn't, that's okay too, right?
Take what you need and leave the rest behind.
There you go. There you go. But we just keep plugging away, right? We've got Kriti on, and she says, thank you. It was so nice to hear you.
Thank you, Kriti.
So thank you. And thank you, everybody, for being on and listening. And thank you, Tammy, for an awesome chat. And I hope to do it again with you soon.
Hope so, too.
And thank you. Have an awesome day, everybody.
Bye.
We'll speak soon.